Hey everyone, what's going on? Jeff here from Films at Home, and today I'm back with a 4K review. And today we're going to be diving into the Criterion Collection release of Citizen Kane on 4K Ultra HD. This came out in their first line of 4K releases along with Mulholland Drive, Menace to Society, and Uncut Gems, which I will be trying to get my hands on all of those at a later date and reviewing them. But I decided to start with Citizen Kane because it is many people consider it to be the best movie of all time. Me, personally, I do not. But it certainly was, of the bunch, I thought the biggest name, and so that's why I purchased this one first. I have a limited budget on what I can spend on like Criterion movies, so being 30 bucks a piece, I had to pick one, and I picked Citizen Kane. So the others, they will be coming. I'll be buying them shortly or through 50% off sales, things like that. So stay tuned for those. But today, we're talking Citizen Kane. So I'll dive into the video details. I'll talk about the audio on this, the packaging, and the special features, and then give you guys a recommendation on whether or not this one's worth an upgrade and worth adding to your collection. If you like 4K reviews, physical media, anything home theater or movie collecting related, please subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate that, and follow along this journey as we try to hit 100,000 subscribers, and like this video so others will see it. Now, let's jump right into the visuals, and I will be reading quickly before we start the visuals on the About the Restoration, which comes as part of the Criterion booklet, because I think this is a really important information, and it'll go to show why I'm saying some of what I'm saying later on in the review. So the presentation here, the restoration, it's presented in its original aspect ratio of 1:37:1. That's good. But there are no 35mm original camera negatives anywhere. They don't exist. And so we can't go back to the original negative, the original film print, which is what you always want to do when you have a restoration if possible. Can't do that here. So this one comes from a 35mm composite master, which was made from the original negative in 1941. So it's a copy of the original negative from 1941, and it was scanned in 16-bit 4K resolution, 3-flash HDR, and then they used sort of color grading references, both a 35mm print from the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, which is, they do the Academy Awards, and the 2010 Warner Brothers restoration. So that was their color grading reference. And like I said, no original negative. So this is coming from basically, I guess you consider that an interpositive. It's one step beyond a negative. There are even some scenes in here that had like a lot of damage even on that second scan, where they had to go and find another scan which was scanned off of the 1941 version. So the majority of the scenes will be from sort of a second level, a scan of the original negative which they used, but there's also a third level used for some of the scenes that were more damaged beyond repair. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. I know that's very technical, but basically the original camera negative is the best. That's what you want. If you can't get that, you want a scan of that negative, basically a copy. That's the next best thing. That's what they used for the majority, and then they basically used a copy of the copy to do any missing scenes or stuff that was too damaged on the copy from 1941. So my comparison point for this review was that 2010 Warner Brothers Blu-ray, which I had in my collection. And I'll say that this Criterion release, it does give you a slight upgrade in HDR. So that was really the biggest difference, is you get a lot less gray and sort of, washed out kind of colors on the black and white. Like the Warner Brothers release had a lot of grays where there should have been more pure white or lighter colors. And the HDR that's on here obviously gives you that added color space, and they could go back and adjust some of that color grading. So the blacks are blacker, the whites are whiter. It's a much more contrasty, kind of inky image, which is what we want for black and white movies. But ultimately, you don't see much of a difference other than that, because they did follow the color grading that was used on the Blu-ray and had been used previously on the prints. And so they didn't really drastically change too much. In fact, in some scenes, you won't notice a difference at all. Some of the other scenes, you may see that, it is a little bit brighter. The brightness has been turned up, contrast has been turned up with the HDR, and that's a good thing. So it does improve the image. It looks as good as it's ever looked, and the main reason for that is the HDR. But given that this doesn't come from an original camera negative, and that Warner Brothers already did a restoration in 2010 for that Blu-ray release, when you're comparing that Blu-ray to this 4K, you really don't see a ton of differences, in my opinion, when it comes down to detail. Like, it is not much finer detail than what we already had on the Blu-ray. It's just hard to get much better when you're using essentially the same source. And sure, the 4K resolution and being native 4K certainly helps. And if you really zoom in and really analyze this, or you're watching it on a very large screen and you're close to the image, you will start to see that some of the areas in the Blu-ray were a little bit softer and the 4K cleans that up. But ultimately, it can only be as good as the source that is available. And unfortunately, that's not the best source that we could have for a movie of this stature. It's a secondary copy, and in some cases, a tertiary third copy. So not the best. I will say it's a slight upgrade, but I would be willing to guess that the majority of people who are buying this, if you bought the Blu-ray and you're watching this from, say 8 to 10 feet away on a 65, 70 inch screen, you may not notice the difference. If you're watching this on a 120-inch projector screen, you may start to pick up on some of those fine details. But I think the vast majority of people, and considering most consumers are still in the 55 to 65-inch range for TVs, you're probably not going to see any difference in quality. The biggest difference maker will be the HDR, but is that really worth an upgrade? Is that really that much better? Hard to say. It's certainly better, but I think what we have here is a situation where, because of the source and because of previous restorations and the great work that was done by Warner Brothers, we've kind of hit critical mass for Citizen Kane. I don't think, honestly, it can look any better at this point. This is the best it's ever looked, but it also really doesn't take 2 steps forward or even 1 step forward. This is a baby step forward over the Blu-ray in terms of the visuals. Very, very slight differences. Most people won't notice, but there's certainly no reason for this to ever be restored again unless they miraculously find an original camera negative, because with the source limitations, this is simply as good as it's going to get, and even that isn't much of a difference between what was already out there. Now, when we're talking about audio here, this is just a mono track. So it's just the 1.0 mono track. You're going to be using your center speaker, and that's going to be it. It's very straightforward. 1 channel, 1 speaker. Typically how older movies, especially movies of this age, of the 30s, the 40s, that's how those movies are made. So I didn't expect any sort of additional soundtrack here, nor did it really need one. But I do want to read some notes again from the restoration booklet. And it says, for restoration of the original mono soundtrack, the bilateral variable area optical track, so basically what they had from the 2 masters that they used, were transferred to digital deluxe sound services in Hollywood. The cleanest surviving sections of the 2 elements were selected and compiled into a single track. So they took those 2 scans that they did use to make the visuals, and they took the best audio pieces from each, and that's how they compiled this track. After 80 years, the physical damage to the optical tracks was substantial, manifesting as audible pops, clicks, dropouts, other distortions. They were digitally mitigated on a case-by-case basis with every effort to preserve the character of the original presentation. So again, those types of issues, those pops, cracks, hissing, dropped sound, those are all issues I had talked about previously with the Universal classic Monsters movies, which are roughly the same age. And you can certainly do restoration to remove some of that, but there's always going to be sort of these audible hisses and pops, and it's never going to be perfect. So don't expect 100% perfection here. Again, they're working with an 80-year-old secondary source that's not the original. They're, stitching 2 sources together, trying to do what they can. But I think that the audio restoration work that they did on this is a little bit more impressive than the visuals. Not that the visual restoration wasn't great. This audio is just a little bit of a leap forward over what the Blu-ray gave. I think they went back and digitally cleaned up a lot more than Warner Brothers did in 2010, and they certainly have delivered the best audio experience that Citizen Kane has ever had. Now, don't expect to be blown away. This is still a very rough sounding movie, especially if you're comparing it to something modern. But even for movies from the 50s or 60s where equipment was so much further along and the scans are in much better shape and preserved, you're going to see a noticeable difference. So just be aware. Be aware it's going to sound rough, but this rough sounding track is still the best it's ever sounded. And I do give Criterion props, I think, mostly for the audio. That is a bigger step forward over the Blu-ray than the visuals were. And I think that they had a little bit more work to do on the audio side of things, and I commend them for it. I think it does sound very good considering its age and the issues this movie has had with preservation over the years. and it's as good as you're going to get. This is the best version of Citizen Kane that we will ever get on physical media. I say that with confidence, knowing what the sources are like. So now we can dive into the packaging and the special features, and I'm going to start with the special features first, of which there are plenty. So there are 3 audio commentaries on here. So actually, I should note, there's one 4K disc and there are 3 Blu-rays with the film and the special features. Now, you've probably heard about the first Blu-ray disc, which contains the film. It had issues. Criterion literally wants you to cut it in half and send them a picture to get a replacement. So they'll be sending out replacement discs on that, but the other 2 Blu-ray discs have all your special features on them. So there's commentaries with Orson Welles scholars, James Naramore and Jonathan Rosenbaum, Peter Bogdanovich, and Roger Ebert. Pretty cool. The Complete Citizen Kane is a rarely seen feature-length BBC documentary from 1991 that's on here. New interviews with film critics, 2 video essays by film scholars and filmmakers, a new program by film scholars and effects experts, Craig Barron and Ben Burrett, interviews with collaborators of Welles, new documentaries with archival interviews with Welles, television appearances by actor Joseph Cotten, The Hearts of Age, very cool, a silent film made by Welles as a student in 1934. That's on here as well. Television programs featuring appearances by Welles and Mercury Theater producer John Houseman, actor William Holland on his collaborations with Welles, radio plays, production stills, newsreel footage, trailers, and then we have this deluxe packaging, which I'll show you in a second, which does have an essay and several other behind the scenes on the restoration. So certainly packed with special features, the best release of Citizen Kane, and 2 discs full of special features in the Blu-ray. That's a big reason why you'd buy a Criterion over a standard release. They certainly have gone a long way getting commentaries and documentaries and archival footage together, and I think that fans of this movie and Orson Welles in particular will really appreciate that. Now, the packaging is interesting. I didn't know what to expect. It's actually just a slipcover, like a pretty standard, sorry about that, pretty standard slipcover, right? So you got your cardboard slip with the big K on the front. Don't love the artwork because it doesn't really tell me what this movie is. Then when you open it up, this is where it gets interesting, and in my opinion, very annoying. Packaging is the worst part of this release. So you've got the K for Kane, then you have to open this up and you see the A, then you have the N, then you have to flip that open. Okay, and then we've got the E. All right, great. Here's the booklet in the middle. And then you've got this crazy fold out that you have to remember which order it goes and spell it backwards. Okay, the E, then the N. Okay. The other annoying thing, and I'm going to show you an up-close version of this, but the discs are just in cardboard sleeves and you can't get them out. The middle part here is raised up, and me sliding this disc, I can't get this disc out of the case. I'll show you what I mean up close. Now, the top and the bottom ones are fine, but those ones on the sides, you literally can't get out. And then I don't think I'm ever going to get used to remembering which order this folds up in. So I knock it for a couple reasons. First of all, I've talked about disc condition and taking care of your discs. Cardboard sleeves suck for that. So boo to Criterion for that. Number 2, it sucks even worse when you can't get the disc out without needing to bend the package and get your thumb or finger up underneath the disc to actually lift it high enough to get over this middle raised portion. So boo number 2 on Criterion. And personally, I just hate the fold out because I want to just access the movie. I don't want to need to do a puzzle every time that I want to get in here and get the booklet and then remember which way it folds back up. Personally, it's just really annoying. I wish they had done their typical digibook packaging or something different and secured those discs. So it's just not my favorite packaging. It's super annoying you can't get the discs out. It's super annoying that they're just in cardboard sleeves, and the cardboard sleeves at that are not safe and secure and impossible to use. So I give them, honestly, and then you talk about the artwork, which I don't love. I don't really understand it. Could have been so much more. I give them pretty poor marks on the packaging. It is not well done. It feels like it's overthought, overdone a little bit, and it honestly, I've only had to open it and close it maybe 5 or 6 times now, and I'm already so annoyed by it that I want to just put it in a different type of package. So anyways, that is what you get with Citizen Kane. That's the whole thing. That's video, that's audio, packaging, special features, the whole shebang. And like I've said, I think it's worth upgrading for certainly super fans of the movie, Orson Welles fans, Criterion Collection collectors. This is one of their premier, first 4K releases. It's a big deal. It's a big movie, but we've definitely hit a peak on quality for Citizen Kane. So this will give you the best picture. This certainly gives you the best audio, and that's my favorite part of it. But it's just not going to be a huge step forward over your Blu-ray. And with this being $30 at half price and $60 at full price, it's hard to say that it's worth $30 when you could get the Blu-ray for, honestly, probably $5 or $10 used right now, especially since this came out. That Blu-ray is going to be very good, but if you have the budget and you love Criterion and you definitely want all these extras and that matters to you, this is a good release to pick up. It's a very solid effort by Criterion, and I don't want to knock them. They did what they could do with the source, but the source being so limited really limited their ability to make this shine on 4K. So I will leave a link down in the description where you can pick this up on Amazon if you use that link. That helps support my channel, so I appreciate it. And like I said, I think it's worth picking up. You just have to decide on your budget, your preferences, what type of collector you are. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Like I said, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. I really appreciate every subscriber. Helps you keep up to date on the videos. And make sure you like this video as well so others will see it and we continue to spread that word about physical media, which I really love to see. With that being said, make sure you follow me on social media. All the links are down in the description. Find out other links in the description, ways you can support my channel very passively. There's a few links down there, things you can check out, my home theater, different promotional links, all that great stuff. Check it out down in the description. But other than that, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Stay safe, stay healthy out there, enjoy this holiday season, and I will talk to you all soon.